Welcome to The Explainer. I'm so thrilled to have you with us because today we are unpacking one of the most historically close, highly fluid, and absolutely high-stakes political battles in modern American history, the November 2026 midterm elections. Whether you're a seasoned political junkie or you're just trying to make some sense of the daily headlines, we're going to break down exactly what's happening in the fight for control of Congress. We'll be relying entirely on the data, the polling, and the on-the-ground reporting to show you the exact state of play.
All right, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for today. First, setting the 2026 stage. Second, the polling picture. Third, driving the campaign conversation. Fourth, redrawing the electoral map. And finally, what it all means. Section 1, setting the 2026 stage. Let's establish our historical baseline. 4. Just 4. That single digit is literally everything right now. In the 2024 elections, Republicans gained majority control of the United States Senate by flipping exactly 4 Democratic seats. Think about that. That is an incredibly thin margin of power in a 100-seat chamber. It means that the foundation of congressional control heading into these midterms is balanced on an absolute knife's edge. And that brings us to the massive stakes coming up on November 3rd, 2026. Every single one of the 435 voting seats in the House of Representatives is up for grabs. Historically speaking, the party sitting in the White House loses an average of 28 House seats during midterm elections. So whether they're defending these seats or trying to flip them, both parties are navigating incredibly tight margins across the entire country. On top of that, 35 out of the 100 Senate seats will also be fiercely contested. Put that all together, and the outcomes of these 435 House races and 35 Senate races will definitively determine the legislative makeup and really the ultimate direction of the 120th United States Congress. Section 2. The polling picture. Let's take a look at the current national mood. So when you average out the generic congressional ballot, which, if you aren't familiar, just asks voters which party they prefer without naming any specific candidates, we're currently seeing a 5.7% Democratic lead across the major data sources. Look at that bottom row. In a political environment defined by razor-thin majorities, a near 6-point advantage is a massive indicator of which way the electoral winds are blowing. Section 3, driving the campaign conversation. What's actually swaying the voters? Based on the source material, there are 3 main pillars absolutely dominating the campaign trail right now. First, affordability and the broader economy. Second, the geopolitical shock of the Iran war and its very direct impact on domestic gas prices. And third, the massive legislative package known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBA for short. These 3 things are the primary drivers of voter concern. Let's break down how this builds economically. Early in the year, economic resilience actually held quite steady, but then the 2026 Iran conflict triggered a massive disruption in energy supplies. Look at the gasoline index right there. It jumped a staggering 21.2% in March alone. No way around it. That hurts. While underlying core inflation remained pretty contained at 2.6%, this huge gas spike pushed the overall headline inflation, the stuff consumers actually feel in their wallets, up to 3.3%. Eagle Intelligence reports really hit the nail on the head when describing this dynamic. Listen to this. Gasoline prices represented the most direct channel through which the costs of the Iran war were transmitted to American voters. Pain at the pump is immediate, right? Analysts note that this specific economic pain has become a huge political driver, putting intense domestic electoral pressure on the current administration ahead of these midterms. The third pillar is domestic policy, and specifically, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This sweeping legislation passed back in 2025 implements major tax cuts, robust immigration enforcement funding, and significant healthcare system changes that are taking effect right now, in 2026. It's the absolute centerpiece of the administration's domestic legacy heading into November. Now, this legislation is incredibly polarizing, depending entirely on who you ask. The administration actively champions the bill's tax relief, proudly noting that it eliminates taxes on tips, on overtime, and on Social Security for seniors. Conversely, the American Medical Association warns that the exact same bill increases Affordable Care Act costs, limits student loan options, and actually delays patient care. So voters find themselves caught right in the middle of this stark contrast. Section 4, redrawing the electoral map. Let's talk about shifting boundaries. You see, the actual physical district lines that decide those 435 House seats are highly fluid this cycle. Thanks to new court mandates in states like Ohio and Utah, and some very aggressive mid-cycle map drawing elsewhere, The geographic boundaries are shifting beneath our feet. This means state-level redistricting efforts could independently tip the balance of power in Congress, completely separate from the national polling trends we just looked at. Let's look at two heavyweights as examples, Texas and California. In Texas, a mid-cycle redistricting effort was pushed by the administration with a specific goal of gaining 5 additional Republican seats. Meanwhile, out in California, voters overwhelmingly passed Proposition 50 with 64% approval, redrawing maps to favor Democrats. Juxtaposing these two opposing strategies shows perfectly how local line drawing can completely neutralize the broader national mood. Section 5. What it all means. Let's pull all these threads together.
If we look at the timeline of this year, it's like a giant puzzle, showing exactly how compounding events have built the current pressure cooker. In February, the Iran war outbreak introduced a massive geopolitical complication. By March, that translated into a record 21.2% jump in gas prices for everyday Americans. Fast forward to May, and generic congressional polling aggregated to a 5.7% Democratic advantage. All of these dominoes are falling in a straight line toward November 3rd. But ultimately, it all comes down to the math. And the math is tight. To flip the Senate, Democrats need a net gain of just 4 seats. To flip the House, just 3 seats. Every single factor we've unpacked today, from the bite of inflation to newly drawn maps, is absolutely potent enough to swing those 3 or 4 seats all on its own. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. How will these newly drawn state maps and these visceral kitchen table economic themes finally collide on November 3rd? Will the structural advantages of redistricting outweigh the economic frustrations of voters, or will inflation and fierce policy debates carry the day? The data is set, the lines are drawn, and the stakes for the 120th Congress literally could not be higher. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the data and stay curious.